Hey everybody, welcome back to Franchise Player, and today we're checking out 5 underrated games on the PS Vita. The PS Vita was one of those consoles where unfortunately it was not as popular in the mainstream as people hoped, so you actually have to do a little bit of digging to find some of those underrated games, and today I think we have 5 solid ones. Let me know some Vita games you like, let me know what you think of these games, and without further ado, let's hop right into it. Alright, so first up we're taking a look at MotorStorm RC. This was a digital only release for the Vita that came out March 6th of 2012. Even with this game being well over a decade old at this point, and that Scion logo at the start definitely dating it considering Scions aren't even made anymore, MotorStorm RC holds up really well. Now, if you're watching this, you might be like, what is this dude talking about? Why is he saying a MotorStorm game is underrated? Well, MotorStorm as a series is not underrated. It definitely needs to come back. But this game in particular, I think is definitely slept on, definitely underrated on Vita, just because it kind of wasn't a standard, more traditional MotorStorm game. This, you're using RC cars, hence the name MotorStorm RC. And it's definitely a lot more arcadey and definitely geared more towards pick up and play sessions. I think this was an amazing release for the Vita. It's a great one where you can just pick it up, put it down 5-10 minutes, no problem if you're on the go or if you're playing it on a break at work. What was really cool about this game too is actually a cross-buy title. So during that whole cross-buy, cross-save era with PlayStation, specifically the PS3 and the Vita, if you bought this on Vita, you'd get it on PS3 and vice versa. So you take those saves with you and, continue to grind it out and get through levels and other tracks and whatnot. So really cool game. I would highly recommend it. If you're really looking for more of a, traditional MotorStorm game, this is definitely not going to be it. But I think overall, this is a fun one. Metacritic rating of 78. So, it was definitely not blowing anyone out of the water, but I think this is a fun arcadey game. Really cool EDM soundtrack on it, which was a nice little change up. And overall, yeah, I would recommend it if you've never touched this. And next up here, we're taking a look at Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable. This was also a digital only release that came out here in the States on the Vita January 8th of 2013. To my knowledge, there's not a physical release of this in the US, maybe there is in Japan. So yeah, digital only or a modded Vita would be your only way to get this game. Now, Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable really feels like a low budget action movie in the best way possible. Like, as you can see, the graphics here aren't really going to blow you away by any means. It, looks similar to, I'd say, a PS2 game in terms of graphic quality. But this game, there's just something about it. It almost has like a War of the Monsters, if you remember that game from the PS2 era. It almost has like the same feel of that in a way. I know they're two completely different kind of games almost, but very similar just kind of in the vibe and the energy that you get from the game. This is another great game, kind of like MotorStorm RC in the sense where it's great for just pick up and play fun. A stage in this game shouldn't take you any longer than 10 minutes if you're going around kind of taking your time, killing all of the enemies and aliens and whatnot. And I don't know, if this makes any sense whatsoever, this game really just feels like a video game. I know you're probably like, once again, what is this dude talking about? Like, it's just plain simplistic. Hey, kill the enemies, run around in a 3D environment. You don't really need to think too much. It has like cheesy voice acting, which also adds to the feel of this game, which I really like, and just kind of gives it character where it doesn't take itself too serious. And it just shows like, once again, with the era we live in, not everything needs to be some massive AAA release for you to have fun with. So I've really enjoyed this game. I actually sank way more time into it on my Vita 1000. I'm recording the gameplay here on my 2000, so it's not like I'm able to pick up on a save file. But yeah, this is a fun one, and I highly recommend it as well. But yeah, if you're looking for some quick arcade fun on the Vita, pick up and play, a game you're not going to have to get super invested into, I highly recommend Earth Defense Force 2017 Portable. There's also a fair amount of other Earth Defense Force games. There's one other one on Vita, and then I know this series is a lot more popular in Japan, but I think this series also has a game on the Xbox 360, so if you end up liking the series, you're definitely able to check out some other titles. Next up here, we have Jet Set Radio, which is not an underrated game at all, but I think it is underrated in the sense that not many people play it on Vita, or I think even know that you could play this game on Vita. Jet Set Radio originally came out in the year 2000 on the Sega Dreamcast and was easily one of the most popular Dreamcast games of all time. And lucky for Vita owners, this game came out for the Vita back in 2012. If you aren't familiar with Jet Set Radio, pretty simple premise to the game. You play as a local gang of kids basically, in Tokyo that are going around spray painting things, tagging stuff up, doing graffiti, and basically battling other rival gangs, evading cops and security guards, in competitions, trying to tag as much as you can, especially from what rivals have put up in the area. But this game I think has aged incredibly well just due to the fact it has that cell shaded style. And to my knowledge, I think this was one of, if not the first games to make use of cell shading in a video game. So pretty cool that it has that, Y2K look to it as well. I think that's another reason why people like it so much, because a lot of people are, very nostalgic for that Y2K era, especially nowadays. But this game, I mean, whether you played it on the Dreamcast, whether you're playing it on the Vita, I think it's one that is definitely worth your time if you've never played it. And I will say, if you are lucky enough to have a Vita 1000, the OLED model, this game looks incredible on an OLED. If you never had the chance to play this on Dreamcast growing up, I mean, me personally, I never had a Dreamcast growing up, and I've actually never even played a real physical Dreamcast console. Mind you, I've emulated some Dreamcast games as of late, but this really goes to show, I mean, how good some of the original Dreamcast games from back in the day must have been. Because not only does the gameplay of this stand up, but the aesthetic, the controls are still pretty tight, and it's really just a one-of-a-kind game. I know recently there was a game called Bomb Rush Cyberpunk that really kind of went for the style of this game. I don't know how that reviewed, but I would consider this game a classic, and I think it's a must-play. Next up here, we have a game called Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds, which was originally released on the Vita in North America on August 12th of 2014. And what was kind of cool about this game is I guess it was originally developed and released on the Xbox 360 and then was ported to the Vita down the road. Phantom Breaker Battlegrounds is a retro arcade style beat 'em up. On the Vita, unfortunately, this was a console that did not get a lot of beat 'em ups. It's not like there's a Streets of Rage on here. It's not like there's any kind of Final Fight, anything like that. So I will say a genre that lacks on the Vita was beat 'em ups. So I was glad, a while back to discover this game. And I think the art style looks great. And this is one of those games that just feels right at home on the PS Vita. And I will say this game doesn't do anything to really reinvent the wheel in terms of a beat 'em up game. Pretty run of the mill, controls wise, very easy to pick up. The game is fairly simple, not a whole lot of depth to it, but I do think the stages look nice. Right here, it's a stage that's set in Akihabara in Japan, which is basically like the retro game and like tech mecca of that area. If you've ever been there, really cool. If you ever want to see what that looks like, I have a game hunting video in Japan on my last trip in Japan where I'm actually in Akihabara. So kind of cool to play in like a video game version of that area. But yeah, if you're really, hungry for a beat 'em up on the Vita, this is probably your best bet unless you end up emulating something or maybe running some older PSP games on your system. Really unfortunate once again that the Vita did not get a lot of beat 'em ups, but overall I think this game is definitely worth your time. A good time killer nonetheless. Are you going to have your mind blown by this game? Is it going to reinvent the beat 'em up genre? Definitely not, but cool art style, fun gameplay, and pretty simple. And last but not least here, we have Assassin's Creed Chronicles, which came to the Vita April 5th of 2016. Now, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game, I think since, probably Assassin's Creed 2 on 360 back in the day. I played a little bit of 3 here on Vita, but, I've been out of the loop with Assassin's Creed stuff. Was never really a huge fan of the series, but this one is definitely a little more obscure. And there's actually 3 different Assassin's Creed Chronicles games. There's China, India, and Russia. And the one I'm playing here that you'll see is China. And I think the art style in these games looks really good. I mean, the graphics aren't, breathtaking or groundbreaking, but it has almost like a watercolor feel to it, I guess, in the background at certain parts, which I think is really interesting. I think a big reason why these games are somewhat overlooked in the Assassin's Creed series and just as a game in general is it's a 2.5D Assassin's Creed game. And traditionally more of an open world, right? Mind you, I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game and really sank my teeth into one in like over a decade at this point. So to me, I'm not even really looking at this as an Assassin's Creed game. I'm looking at it as a fun stealth game that is played in 2.5D and has, I'd say, a pretty cool art style. Mind you, I only played the Assassin's Creed Chronicles in China and had a good time with it so far. I'm not super deep into the game, but I think the combat is interesting enough. I think the stealth is cool. The assassinations are nice, sneaking around, traversing through the levels. I think this is a fun one. Definitely underrated in my opinion, and I think fell under the radar for good reason. Especially this Vita port where it's a collection of all three of them. All right, guys, so that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. Hope you liked these 5 underrated PS Vita games. I'll definitely have another one of these videos in the future for the Vita. Let me know some games that you think are underrated for the console. As usual, appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you soon with another video.